Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode number 3 of Big Picture Money. So, Big Picture Money is a series that I am doing on the Financially Fearless podcast, where I'm helping everyone get out of the struggle bus with money. And today we are talking about savings. We are specifically talking about if you feel anxious spending money, even when you have a savings account. This episode is going to completely shift how you see saving. Now, I have some different ideas, thoughts, and beliefs around what your savings is supposed to be used for. But a lot of these strategies and ideas I implement with my clients, and they lead to them feeling more peace, more confidence, and more overflow in their life. So let's dive into first defining savings because when I have people and clients that come into my work and they say, oh, Shannon, I have a savings account, or I have this savings, or I'm saving this money for something. Everyone that I see has a completely different definition of what their savings is. It really blows my mind that we all have different ideas of what savings actually is. Some people have an idea of what they're saving for. Some people have money in the savings account, not sure what to do with it. Some people have savings accounts and they're building debt. Some people have savings, they feel anxious about spending money. So I'm really going to talk about all of those different topics. So let's define what it is, okay? Because this is a big piece most people get wrong. Your savings isn't supposed to sit there collecting dust while you build debt. Okay. Your savings isn't meant to be this untouchable thing that you never use. Your savings is supposed to, its main job is supposed to stop debt from building. That's the way to think about savings. Savings is not there to sit and make you feel comfortable while your debt starts to build. It's also there to cover pop-up expenses for things you didn't plan for. It's also there for emergencies like losing income, losing a job, or just having something affecting your income. Most importantly, savings is there to help you get ahead. That is what I define its job as. Now, its purpose is to stop debt from building, but its job is to help you get ahead. This is how I teach money differently. I actually encourage my clients to strategize and use their savings, not to deplete it recklessly, but to actually give it a purpose and make sure that they're leading their savings, okay? To use it as a tool to get ahead of their bills, to breathe again, to create space between when money comes in and when it leaves their account. And that is how I help my clients create that overflow feeling. So, if you haven't listened to me before, this is your first time listening. Hey, my name is Shannon. I was a successful six-figure coach who had $25,000 in credit card debt, no savings, and I had a baby on the way. I figured out that six figures really wasn't going to get me to the place that I wanted to be financially. I became a lot more financially savvy. I paid off $25,000 of credit card debt. I saved 6 months of personal expenses, 6 months of business expenses. And I did this all within 16 months. And within that 16 months, I also had a baby. I was postpartum. I became surprised, pregnant with number two at 7 months postpartum. So within that time, I was postpartum and pregnant and had a little baby at home. And I managed to do all of that in that time. So right now I work with six-figure breadwinning moms who want to build $100,000 of net worth without giving up their cleaning ladies. I am all about creating this overflow, abundant relationship with money where we are using budgeting, we are using financial strategies, but we are doing it in a way where you can feel and really embrace this luxurious overflow of money. Okay, so let's dive into an example of a client that I had about savings. So I had a client who had about $15,000 in savings when she came to me. Her monthly bills averaged around $20,000 a month, and she was carrying about $80,000 in credit card debt. So on paper, you'd think, wow. And she was able to cover the $20,000 a month with her income that was coming in. I think her income was averaging anywhere from like $25,000 to $30,000 a month. So on paper, she was making incredible money, but she constantly did, even with that amount of money and even with a good amount of savings, she constantly felt like she was living paycheck to paycheck, right? And the weight of the credit card debt felt crushing. So here's what we did. We figured out her true monthly income number, what actually flowed in and out each month. And then And then we came up with a strategy for using her savings strategically. Really important part of this is actually figuring out her true monthly income number. But once we got that number, we didn't just let her savings sit there and then try to tackle debt payoff. We used it to start funding bills beyond what her income was covering. So I got her 2 weeks ahead. Now, not only was she no longer panicking about the next will and feeling about the next bill, but she started to feel a sense of relief and no longer feeling that crushing weight of her credit card debt, right? She started to feel a sense of relief. Her savings finally had a purpose. Now, here's the psychological trick behind actually giving your savings some type of purpose or some type of job. So when your savings has a job, psychologically, when you're looking at your savings is already allocated to certain things and to do certain things, you stop spending it. It's like if you've saved before for, let's say, a new car, or you saved for a move, or you saved for something that had a job, right? You don't touch that money because it has a purpose. So when you have savings that's just sitting in a savings account and it has no purpose and no job, it's much easier to spend that money. It becomes this thing that instead of thinking of it like it's untouchable, it's like this little pot you just keep grabbing money out of. Every time you need some extra money, you're just pulling from that savings, right? But when you give it a job, you stop impulsively spending it. Her savings was no longer money just sitting there, right? In that account collecting dust. It's just money just sitting there and I just pull from it when I need to. It became her buffer and it became something that actually made her feel like she had space. She had space to breathe. She had space to, with money, it was like, oh, I have this spaciousness with money now. I don't have to no longer have the next paycheck and come in and then it pays for this thing and it pays for this thing and you're just on the cycle over and over and over again. No, now her savings had created this buffer of like, I have 2 weeks of bills starting from this date to 2 weeks ahead are already covered. That means when I get paid again today, I can cover another 2 weeks. That means you could be a month out, right? You could have, so as I'm recording this, right, it's November 4th. You could take your savings, apply it to all the bills you have in the next 2 weeks, and then you have all the way through mid-November. Then let's say you get paid again this week or next week, and then you push out the bills again. So instead of when like something was to pop up, right? It's no longer like, oh my God, there's no money. It's like, oh no, there is money. I do have it allocated, but I can pull it from some things. It also just feels like there's room to breathe. Like you can feel like, oh my God, I'm not like waiting. I'm not counting down the days to the next day, right? Like I'm not counting down the days to the next paycheck. I actually have some space with my money. I'm getting some time to think. I'm getting a lot more grounded. I'm getting a lot more clear about what my money is doing also. All right, let's talk about another client who had a little bit of a different issue. So I had another client who had a savings account, but she was in the constant transfer. Now, I've had a good amount of clients, I would say, who do this transfer dance, which is what I'm going to call it. The transfer dance of you transfer money, whether maybe you have it set up automatically, but you're transferring money to a savings because you're trying to save, right? So you're trying to save, so you're putting money into a savings account and then you're just transferring it back out when you can't make your bills in like another week or whatever, right? So she would put a little bit away and then pull it back out to pay bills. And she came to me not knowing why she couldn't save money. She was frustrated because she felt like she could never understand, how do I keep this money, Shannon? I constantly am saving and then I'm pulling it, I'm saving and I'm pulling it. So what we discovered was that she didn't actually have savings. She just had money that wasn't assigned. My job was to help her give that money a purpose. So we identified all the things that are her true expenses. Things like spending money on Christmas, right? When Christmas would come up, she wouldn't have any money in her paycheck, so it would be pulling from that savings account, right? And she probably put some money there and then come back out. Buying a new fridge, braces for her kids, pop-up birthday parties, pop-up sports, all of those things you have to pay for as a parent. All those things that were popping up every month and then stealing her sense of stability. Another client that I had she wasn't a mom, but she had pets. And there was always these pop-up expenses with the pets, whether the pets needed surgery of some kind, or the pets had a pop-up vet, or they just needed a different type of food. Now you're spending more money on food, right? There was all of her pop-up expenses tended to be with her pets. So all these things were popping up, and then they were kind of like It was like as if she felt like she was getting a little bit ahead, and then it was almost like she felt like knocked down again. Like I almost got there. I almost got to the savings, right? And then it was just like she was just knocked down again. So it's like this feeling that people feel where it's like I'm saving money and then I'm constantly depleting it. Once we gave every dollar a name and a job, then she could actually see how much she really needed to stay ahead and not just cover the month. So once we covered all of those things, now there will also be a time when like you can't predict every single pop-up expense that comes into your budget, but once you get a majority of them down, and then you can even there's even strategies you can do to cover for pop-up expenses that I work on with my clients. There's ways for it to feel like you're not going to deplete your savings at that point. It's just like, oh, I just needed another $100 for this thing or whatever, right? That's when she really started feeling in control. We were like, okay, now we know the exact number you actually need to cover all of your true expenses that you have. So, true expenses are those things we usually don't set money aside for, but we need to. And your bills are kind of those things that you're only thinking about to cover those bills that come monthly. True expenses are those things that we always spend money on, but you're never thinking about them. Like you're never thinking about them in the sense of this is how much money I need every single month. They just pop up and then you say, oh my God, and they deplete your savings, right? Once you know that number, then you know how much you need to get ahead. This is such an important number. So many people think that they can save money without knowing that number. And then that's when you get into that cycle because you don't actually know how much money you really need to stay ahead every single month or how much money you need just for the month, right? And if you don't know that number, then it can constantly feel like you are playing this game of the transfer dance, right? Saving money, it's coming out, saving money, it's coming out. When you start to know majority of your pop-up expenses and how much you're spending on true expenses, that's when you can actually start to get ahead. So she finally figured out that number, and then we knew how much money she needed to set aside every single month to start doing some real saving. All right. Okay, so why does this work, right? Why do we need to give our savings a purpose? Because once you give your savings a purpose, you stop see it as something that restricts you and you start see it as something that supports you, right? It's no longer about this thing of I can't touch my savings. There was this like if you were to feel it in your body, it's like a restriction around it. It's like a squeezing of it, right? And whenever I get in that place with money, I know that's a red flag. It's really about how can the savings protect me from debt? How can it give me space to breathe? How can it help me move forward with my money and my financial goals and not backwards? Because savings, when used strategically, gives you the emotional safety for you to actually make those calm, those clear financial decisions and no longer reacting to money. When you can make those calm, those clear financial decisions, that's when you start to feel that feeling of, I have more than enough, that overflow feeling, that feeling of, I feel really abundant with my money because my money's already paying for things 2 weeks ahead. And whoa, I have more money coming to my account. Oh my God, I feel so abundant, right? When you get to that place, you make 100 times better financial decisions with your money than if you are constantly feeling like you are reacting to money. It is chaos. It feels scary, right? So the next time you feel anxious about your savings, remember this. Your savings aren't supposed to make you feel guilty. It's supposed to make you feel safe. They're not there to sit untouched while you struggle and panic and fear. It's there to support you and move you forward. That's a feminine way to view savings. And it's why my clients end up feeling more abundant, more spacious, and more in control of their money than ever before. If you are ready to create that same sense of overflow, grab my free class and workbook called Romantic Money Overflow. I start to show you a completely different way to manage your money that you probably haven't thought of before. And it's a way that kind of puts you and overflow first and your bills second. It's a very cool framework and idea that I have come up with. It'll help you start building safety, space, and abundance with your money, no matter how unpredictable your life or the economy feels right now. And you can grab that completely and totally free. You don't need more willpower with money. You just need a better plan for it. And your savings, that's where overflow begins. Thank you guys so much for joining me on today's episode. I will see you in the next episode of this series, and it will be the last episode of Big Picture Money series. Yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions. Please feel free to leave any comments on Spotify or YouTube, and I would love to answer them. Bye, everybody. See you in the next episode.